Hello everybody, my name is Appendix Kid and welcome to part 1 of the complete Shatters guide. Shatters is currently one of, if not the hardest dungeon in Realm, killing both the skilled and unskilled players. Whether you are looking to get your first complete, or you are already a veteran in this incredibly difficult dungeon, I hope that this guide will teach you something new and improve your gameplay in the Shatters. Right off the bat you might be wondering who I am. I am currently a Realm streamer on Twitch at twitch.tv/theappendixkid. I also lead raids over at the public Shatters Discord. I've had many completes and many deaths while learning this dungeon myself, so I hope my experience can be of use to you in your Shatters endeavors. Before even heading into the Shatters, there are a few things you should know or be prepared for. My personal recommendation for classes are any of the 3 melees, such as Knight, Warrior, or Paladin, or even a Priest. Melees are nice for their high defense and health pools, while Priests are nice for their self-sustained heal at the cost of just being a little squishier. My own personal recommendation is a Paladin. You can keep the nice heal and damaging buff up for yourself and the group. That being said though, still be prepared to die, as Shatters is the hardest dungeon in the game, and there is a lot to learn. Before fighting the first boss, you must first clear the village to open the bridge to fight him. This is done by destroying 8 switches scattered around the map. There are over 25 locations these can be at, but you do not know which of these will have your 8 switches. There are 3 different maps you can get for the village to identify these locations. You can find out which map you are on by the area around spawn. On screen now, you can see all 3 maps with player spawn shown as a green dot and pink dots representing all possible switch spawns. For the safest and most efficient way of clearing each map, the recommended paths for the main group are shown as a red trail, while the paths for rushers is shown in blue. While in the group, you always want to be killing minions. Slows can be extremely helpful for the group, as all minions can be slowed, while stuns also play an important role, as all stone and fire minions can be stunned, along with their accursed minion counterparts. Now you might be asking yourself, what are accursed minions? Accursed minions are always the same as their non-accursed counterparts, however, they will deal additional damage and leave a grave upon death. Watch out, as after 1 minute has passed, these minions will respawn upon their graves. You can identify these minions by their purple shots and sprites. During your clear for the village, there are other notable minions you need to be on the lookout for. First off, rogues. They appear initially invisible like a cloaked player, but uncloak when a player approaches, shooting a ton of shots. Be sure not to walk over them, as they can insta-kill you. If you find one, stand near it, but not on it, and call an R in chat to alert other players of a rogue's presence. The next minion to look out for is gargoyles. They have minimal DPS and can be stunned, but are also quick and can paralyze you. They are only a real concern if you are paralyzed around other minions, so do your best to keep your distance. The third and possibly rarest minion to find during your village clear is the Eye of the King, a very rare minion with an even rarer accursed counterpart. This minion will darkness and silence you. The accursed counterpart is very deadly and will follow players. It will also sicken and darkness you permanently until you leave the close radius of the eye. The last and possibly most deadliest of the minions you will encounter on your village clear is the Idol. The Idol shoots petrifying shots and shotguns that can quickly lead to your death. This minion cannot be killed. If you see him, type an I in chat and run for your life. Luckily, the Idol has set territories where he spawns and roams as shown on screen. Avoid these areas as long as possible and you should be fine. Once you have dealt with minions and made it to a switch, it isn't as simple as shooting it. You must first stand on the platform around the switch and stay within 3x3 squares to continue doing damage. Once you have finished 7 switches, either stand next to one that has been broken, or head to the final one on your minimap, marked as a pink dot, and head through the portal. Run straight up the bridge and hang out on the right side of the boss room as to not activate the boss early. You are invulnerable for a few seconds while teleporting, so do not be fearful of any minions waiting by the bridge. Now that you finished your village clear by destroying all 8 switches, you are ready for the first boss fight, the Bridge Sentinel. In this fight, the boss has 3 phase chains to worry about, 2 normal and 1 rage, with 3 phases in each chain, and 4 towers to destroy based on the boss's HP. You're going to start this fight at the very top right side of the room. To start off this fight, let's explain what the phase chains are. There are 3 phase chains in the Sentinel fight, and you will start with one of 2 normal phase chains. First is slashes or sweeps. You're going to start this phase by being at the top right of the room and dodging the red petrifying shots from the Sentinel and begin dealing damage. The boss will be stationary at the top of the room during these slashes. This phase is generally good to begin with, as it is allowing all classes melee or ranged to deal damage during the entirety of the chain. After slashes, the Sentinel will transition into slow DVDs. The Sentinel will bounce around the room, shooting out a pulse of shots which will begin to accelerate into a straight line. If you have 50 or more speed, stand in front of him and shoot behind you. If you have less than 50 speed, just dodge and don't let him run over you. The final phase of this phase chain is swords. The Sentinel will stand at the top of the room spawning giant swords. Blue ones will go straight down, while the red ones will sweep across the room. The colored swords are only indicators, and only once they become white are the actual shots you must dodge. You can push in during this phase, as shown on screen. The pattern for these swords is the same every time. If you are not pushing in, stay towards the bottom of the room above the wall of shots, with your camera uncentered to see the swords coming from the top of the room. It is always better to stand between the swords and eat only the hilt rather than take an entire sword. The second normal phase chain you will get is jumps. To start this phase chain, the Sentinel will jump 11 times. Each time he lands, he will shoot a massive explosion of shots, destroying decoys along the way. You want to try and keep the boss away from the center of the room and lead him around the corners or walls of the arena to help keep the spread of shots easier to dodge. However, don't put yourself in the corners, as these are the most dangerous places to be. In these 11 jumps, his third and ninth jump are predicted, where he will jump farther and faster, attempting to predict your movements. During these, it is best to keep your distance and try not to move towards his location. His 5th and 11 jumps are big and directly up, meaning they will go up no matter what, even if all players are below him. Once the boss finishes his final jump, he will then transition into the arena phase. The Sentinel will stand in the middle of the room, spawning a big circle of swords, also called pencils, around him. These swords will begin to move slowly and then target the nearest player. He starts with a circle of swords and then transitions into crosses. When he begins doing these crosses, you do not want to stand still, as all these swords will begin to shoot at once towards either the group or nearest player. Once he finishes these crosses, he will finish off with lingering swords that will continue to shoot as he transitions into his next phase. The final phase after arenas is fast DVDs. Similar to the first chain's slow DVDs, the Sentinel will bounce around the room shooting out a pulse of shots. This time, however, 75 speed will be required to stand in front of the boss. Once he is done bouncing, he has 2 ways of finishing these DVDs, chasing the nearest player or doing a short rotation around the center of the room. Before I introduce the last phase chain, we must first talk about towers. Every 20% health interval of the Sentinel, he will become invulnerable, while the towers will become dark and able to be destroyed. Shooting them will cause them to break down and begin spawning blow bombs immediately, and every 30 seconds thereafter. To destroy blow bombs, either shoot them or run over them until they start to flash. However, do not stand on flashing blow bombs. The priority in which you take the towers is different depending on what phase chain you are in. If you begin the fight with slashes, you will get bottom right, then bottom left tower. Whereas if you start the fight with jumps, you will get the bottom left, then bottom right tower. The next towers depend on which phase comes next. If the next phase chain is slashes, you will then get the top right, then top left tower. If it is jumps, you will get the safest tower away from the current jump of the Sentinel. There are many scenarios in which these will not be followed, but they will be addressed in a future video for advanced Shatters tips. The final phase is known as Rage. Rage phase is its own phase chain that will begin when a previous normal phase chain ends and the boss is below 40% HP. The pattern is 5 slashes, a petrified jump, and then pinballs. He will do this 3 times. However, the final chain, he will replace his pinballs with a second petrifying jump. Rage will begin with the Sentinel going to the top of the room and the sky going dark. The phase will begin with the Sentinel chasing the nearest player, and he will begin sending out 5 shotgun-like slashes. During these slashes, you want to attempt to get the boss into a corner similar to the 11 jumps from earlier. However, if another player is attempting to drag the boss, keep your distance to prevent a counter drag. The second and third chain, the shotguns will come out faster. After the boss finishes his 5 shotgunning slashes, he will transition into a petrified jump. Similar to the original 11 jumps, the Sentinel, well, jumps. This time shooting out red petrifying shots. It is extremely important to dodge these. These shots spread out and shoot in multiple directions, so it helps to have the boss jump into a corner to send most of the shots into the walls. If you get petrified on top of a blow bomb, it is best to just Nexus instead of getting a new character slot. After the Sentinel lands his petrified jump, he will then transition into the final phase of the chain known as pinballs. The Sentinel will bounce around the room similar to DVDs, however, the boss will only shoot when he bounces off a wall. Additionally, the boss will also leave behind a trail of pencils, similar to the arena phase. These pencils will still target the nearest player, so do your best not to stand still and get lined up by multiple pencils. After he finishes Rage, he will then begin repeating any of the previous phases, while now also adding Rage phase change to the mix, so be ready for anything. With that being said, that should be most of, if not all, the information you need to get through the village and the Sentinel boss fight. I'd like to give a huge shout out to Ethan and Tator for being able to provide us with all the clips for this video along with all the edits, and also a shout out to everybody from my stream who joined us on the runs. If you guys want to be able to join any of our runs or have any questions for me, feel free to tune in at twitch.tv/theappendixkid, and I will be happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you guys so much for watching. Again, this is only part 1 of 4 of this series, so be ready for more content to come for your in-depth Shatters guide.